So my name is Maddie. Pronouns are she and her. I live in the Cowichan Valley. And what led me to creating Crescent Moon Connections was I was a youth and family counselor for about 3 years and loved it, but such a demanding, emotionally draining job,
Mhm.
especially in a very vulnerable community. I was working for a nonprofit. There was just like so many
Mhm.
different things, and I found myself really burning out. It kind of came out of nowhere, and I just started having a lot of health issues and really recognized that I needed to take a step back, that I wasn't able to show up for my clients the way that they deserve. And also, it didn't feel as inspiring and motivating as it previously had.
Mhm.
And I just think in the realm of counseling, like I really value being like with people present and fully engaged. And I think that's like a
Mhm.
critical part of counseling. And so the second that I started to notice that kind of decline, as well as like my own mental health and my own
Mhm.
physical well-being, I was like, this is a sign. And one of my kids actually said to me, like, like you always remind me about self-care. Like, what
Mhm.
about you? And I was like, oh no. She's given me a she's the counselor now. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really burned out, stepped away from my job, and then was kind of met with this, oh my God, who am I? What am I doing? Um, Identity crisis in a sense.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
what I kind of brought me through that was I decided, I was like, okay, well, I need to take care of myself first. So what do I enjoy doing? And I really enjoy yoga. And so I had the opportunity to do my yoga teacher training. So I went through with
Mhm.
that. And then I just started talking with more people about how um, it's been really isolating.
Mhm.
And making friends as an adult is really hard, making new connections. So started thinking, like, oh, well, maybe I could hold space for that, like building more connections, building more relationships. I also was learning tarot and astrology at the time, which is another one of my passions. And so that kind of came to a big blend of offering circles, yoga, and tarot through Crescent Moon Connections. Yeah.
I love that. And it sounds like quite the journey, but I think that's kind of always how it happens, right? We have this like
Mhm.
huge kind of catalyst moment that wakes us up to be like, what am I doing? And really needing to tune in and listen and coming back to your values. Like, what is it? Like, asking yourself, what is it that I need? What actually makes me happy?
Mhm.
And then making time and prioritizing those things is huge,
Yeah.
huge. And then now building a business around those things is
Mhm.
like you just get to wake up and do what you love,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Rather than it really feeling like work.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And it didn't feel good to see counseling as work because yes, it is. There's the administrative processes and, the behind the scenes stuff. But when I was viewing and starting for it to feel like this job, um, but being with people, I
Yeah.
don't think should feel like that. There's going to be times where you're maybe feeling more emotionally drained and such, but
Yeah.
it started to not feel like this
Mm.
connection. It started to feel
Hmm.
really disconnected in a sense.
Well, I think that's amazing, just your awareness to be able to realize that. Because I
Mhm.
think so many people have the mentality, or we've been conditioned to have the mentality like, just push through, just keep doing it. Like, this is what you went to school for. Like,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like, don't listen to those signs. Don't listen to how disconnected you're feeling. Just like keep going.
Hmm.
And I think that that is just like kudos to you because so many people don't have the courage to really listen to that. And yeah, and
Yeah,
look at
and I
where
still
it's
have
got you now.
yeah, totally. And I must say, like, I am in a position in my life where I've got the support and the financial stability to be able to do this, but I also
Yeah.
understand understand this is not the case for a lot of people. They do
Yes.
have to push through. They do have to kind of get that paycheck to pay the bills and feed the family and keep a roof over their head. So it definitely comes with its level of privilege, but I'm
Mhm.
very grateful that I do have this opportunity and time to explore this and heal deeper and all of those good things.
Yeah, absolutely. And where are you now? Like, are you hosting moon circles? I think you have two locations that you're doing that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, so I was doing full moon and new moon circles in the Cowichan Valley throughout the summer and also teaching outdoor yoga. And now I'm slowly transitioning to, I'm hoping to continue to teach yoga outside as long as the weather holds up, and then finding a space to do more regular classes. And then I will be hosting a monthly group in Victoria and one in the Cowichan Valley. And it's more of like
Amazing.
a closed group so that there can be stronger connections built, a sense of safety. And yeah, just a bit more of a close-knit community. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah, and I'm not sure what else I'm going to be exploring, but those are the two that are on the horizon for me.
I love that. And I love like the intimate experience. It
Mhm.
just creates that like safe container, but also it's so powerful to do that kind of work in a group
Mhm.
because just being seen by like more than one person when you are moving through those emotions,
Mhm.
that is when the transformation happens.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we all get a little bit stuck, especially in from COVID and isolation, in this idea that, oh, I'm the only person experiencing this. There's something
Mhm.
wrong with me. I'm not normal.
Yeah.
And coming into a space where you're like, oh my God, all these people feel exactly the same way as me. That's just comforting and like reassuring in itself.
Yeah, it's so freeing. It's just
Yeah.
like a weight can be lifted
Yeah.
off. You're like, oh my gosh, like it's
Yeah.
okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to
Yes.
be seen in this state of maybe not having it all together.
Yes.
Yeah.
But tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about your journey through things.
Yeah, so mine was definitely a health journey as well that it's
Yeah.
led me to this work. And yeah, so I was started off working as an event coordinator in Toronto, doing the hustle bustle life and was loving it, like growing super quickly and just like moving up the ladder and like started doing international events, huge trade shows, and was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. But I was super disconnected from my body.
Mm,
I was also orthorexic at the time, so
mhm,
just like super obsessed with working out, eating healthy, and it wasn't like, and that's where the disconnection came from because it was like I was pushing my body to perform and be this, but like not listening to it at all. Like it was almost like you are going to do what I say.
mhm,
And to be able to keep continuing at that high performing level in my job. And it was just like, just total rock bottom moment when I had like three very significant events all happen in one week. And, they always say like things happen in threes, right? And it was
always.
just like boom, boom, boom. And I was just like, like couldn't, needless to say, like didn't have a job. The company went completely bankrupt that I was working for. So I had to move in with my aunt at the time. And just like my body was not doing well. So was pretty much bed rest at that point. And
Mhm,
then was able to get back on my feet. And then, a year later, I would say that I was just getting by. Like I was on my feet, but I
yeah.
was still in that like unhealthy kind of just
Mhm,
survival, just making it mode. And so when I got another call, I was quite fragile. It was a call to do with the situation that had happened before a year prior.
mm,
And so that was when I kind of just like hit my breaking point. I was like, I can't be here anymore. I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't do this life anymore. Like, it was
mhm,
just like,
yeah.
I need a complete 360.
Mhm,
And so I ended up actually just like selling. So I quit my job. I sold absolutely everything. I packed a bag and went to Denmark and just like worked on a permaculture farm there and just like met these two amazing women who just showed me that there was another way to live.
mhm,
And I was disconnected from the internet for 3 months there. Like, I mean, I tapped into email just to like talk to my family here and there,
Yeah.
but like no social media or anything like that. And that was like the first time that like I actually like started to love myself, which sounds as cheesy as it is,
So
but like
beautiful.
gonna get emotional. But
Yeah.
like that was like when you're like, whoa, who was I? Like, what was I doing? I've been so disconnected for I don't even know how many years, probably since my parents got a divorce.
Mm.
And so it was just like really, really healing. And so I that's when I actually learned about astrology
Mm.
and came across the lunar nodes. And I was just like, what is this thing? It just like helped me make sense of everything I had gone through in my life. And it was like, you're not crazy.
Mhm.
Everything you have gone through was exactly what you were supposed to go through. And don't worry because like this is what's coming. And it
Mhm.
was just like, holy shit, there's this like beautiful light at the end of the tunnel, and here's a roadmap of how to do it. And so I like became completely obsessed with it and just like wanted to learn everything I could. And then did a year-long mastermind program and then a few online courses, and then just like read absolutely every book
Mhm.
possible.
Mm.
And then I just started doing like free readings for people for a
Nice.
year just to like, does this work for other people? Does it resonate? And it was just like really sticking for people, and everyone was kind of having the same reaction I did. So I was like, this is powerful, and I want everyone to know about this because there is another way to see life. Like, you're not a victim to your life, and you're not a victim to the things happening to you, and you can stop them at any time. You
Mhm.
know, once you wake up to this new awareness of why you're attracting the things you're attracting, like now you get to take your power back, you get to take the control back and start to lead life from a more conscious place.
Mhm.
And that's really what this tool helped me do. So then I just started to teach this to other women, started with one-to-one sessions and just built from there and started doing online courses. And now I'm running my first training, actually training women in this work to pair it with counseling, to pair it with coaching, because I think that's something that's missing in the
Mhm.
industry is, like, especially in counseling, is that's what when I was going through like therapy and stuff, I noticed that they were all kind of using the same approach, and
Mhm.
it just really wasn't resonating for me
Mhm.
because I was like, I feel like they're just saying lines they've memorized.
Mhm.
And I was like, but we're all so unique and so different. And I think that astrology, you can pull up someone's chart and really allows me as the counselor, as the coach, to see this person, see their psyche, see their energy, see where their soul wants to go and what's holding them back, and really understand what this specific individual needs,
Yeah.
not what I've memorized in my head. And so I was like, if I can just, have this tool and bring it to people in this sort of field, then I think that would be pretty life changing because we would see, like, we would just see results in a shorter amount of time because
Mhm.
you don't need as many therapy sessions. Therefore, you're actually
Mhm.
getting huge results and they're actually really healing.
Mhm. Yeah. Wow. I feel like very similar in a lot of experiences. Like it sounds
Yeah.
like, which is unfortunate that I think a lot of people I've talked to that have experienced this like shift in life, I guess, there's always some sort of catalyst. There's this health crisis. There's this like breaking point and like
Mm-hmm.
stripping of the soul. And it's so unfortunate that we kind of let it get that far. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that we as the individual let it get that far. It's the society norm of like that keep pushing. And until you're really sick, then you
Yeah.
get the permission to be like, oh, you're sick enough to take a break
Mm-hmm.
or to get rest. And yeah, I think that's really inspiring to hear that you had that kind of reawakening and reconnection with yourself because I mean, yeah, I think a lot of people I've talked to as well as myself, it's kind of like, who was I? Like, how did I keep going at that pace? And like, now I have such a resistance to like, I don't ever want to go back to that. But then
Mhm.
now I'm in this like limbo of like, okay, I
Mhm.
don't want to do like the hustle and push myself, but I need to have some sort of stuff to go through. Like,
Absolutely. And you're also
yeah.
like, but and I also don't want to be the person that's sick on the couch. Like, I don't
Oh,
want
yeah.
that identity either,
No.
right?
You want
So
to feel
there's like,
empowered.
yeah, you're like, how do I find this balance in
Yeah.
between both? And
Hmm.
what I find interesting, I don't know if you found this as well, but after like traveling and living a different way and then
Hmm.
coming back to Canada and running a business, you
Hmm.
almost take that same. So I noticed myself, I took that same pattern I had in Toronto. She
Hmm.
didn't leave, like
No.
she left for a bit because she didn't have to play that role. But as soon as she came back, opened her laptop and was like, okay, business mode,
Hmm.
Toronto Marina came right back in. And that same pattern
Yeah.
happened all over again. And that's when I realized it doesn't matter what job I have. I can work for this person, I can work for this person. It doesn't matter if I'm working in a flower shop.
Hmm.
I'm going to have the same relationship
Yeah.
with that job, no matter what it is, until I change the pattern.
Absolutely. And that survival mode that we get stuck in, and until you see, it sounds like you experience this, where until you see another way of being, because I'm going to
Mhm,
assume that when you were in Toronto, that was the norm. Everybody was
mhm,
working that way. Everybody was praised for working that way. Like in my industry, it was like, oh, you took on another client. That's amazing. Like
mhm.
you're so, like they won't ever be able to connect with anyone other than you. And so you're becoming this like, it's all or
Totally.
nothing, it's all on me, I'm responsible, and I'm praised for it. That's
Mhm.
strong, that's brave, that's success. And so it sounds like until you had that change of physical environment and seeing people like in another way of living, it wasn't, probably was pretty eye-opening to be like, wait, there's another way to
Yeah.
live it, what,
And
like,
at first, it was so uncomfortable
oh, of
because I
course,
went from like also being an event planner. So every little minute is like
yes,
planned. Like my
yes,
calendar is just like that. My meal plan, right? Everything
yes.
was just so planned.
Cool.
And then
Yeah.
went to a place where there was no plan. You wake up not knowing how anything is going to go that day. And I had a really hard time at first, but
Absolutely.
it was like the best medicine I
Yeah.
needed. And I had to sit in that discomfort for like, it was a good month or so to like
Oh, yeah.
move past not having everything planned. And
Yeah.
then I saw the beauty of it and really just got to tap into more of like my child self because it
Mm.
was just like getting to be out in the garden and like
Mhm.
reading what you want to read or just like being creative with coloring and stuff again, right? Just because there wasn't a an outcome attached to everything you're doing. It was like you're
Mm.
just doing it to do it. You're not doing it to like it has to produce something.
Yeah. I find that really, that's something, I mean, I've been like doing this journey, I guess, for about 6 months now, and I'm still uncomfortable with days when like I've done all the tasks that I need to do, and I
Hmm.
and I can read, or I could go for a run. I feel so guilty. I feel, because there had been, for, I was in school, then I was in post secondary, then I was right into my job. There's always been that structure and that expectation
Hmm.
of producing and achieving. And so then not having these like very clear results or
Hmm.
goals that I'm working towards and having more freedom, it was so uncomfortable because um it was like just so foreign to me, and I would just be sitting on the couch being like, I don't feel worthy enough to be able to go and read my book right now, like I should be doing more. The should, that's
Yeah.
what gets me.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
so important to sit in that discomfort and recognize where that's coming from.
Yeah. And just like it's safe to
Yeah.
be, like it's safe to not be producing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's the
Hmm.
biggest block I think for a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of people because it's just been so ingrained in our society.
Mhm. Can I ask what it's been like for you, moving away from that identity as like the event planner and
Hmm.
kind of like very business hustle environment, how that's
Yeah.
shifted to where you are feeling now?
I think it's been a really long journey because in between all of it, I guess I left that part out, but while I was traveling, I got Lyme disease,
Oh.
and that's been a journey of over 3 years now. And so the first year, so I got back from Denmark, That's when I believe I got the tick bite, was in when I was visiting my parents in Ontario.
Mm.
And I continued on traveling after that. I went to Australia and New Zealand to continue living this way and doing these workaways and working on these eco villages and farms. And I just progressively got more and more sick and super sleepy and didn't know what was going on. Went to the hospital in New Zealand at the time. They were like, "Oh, you just like pulled your back gardening." I was like, "No, like I feel like I'm about to die. Like it feels like every organ is shutting down."
Ugh.
So that night I was just like, "Hey, what do I do? I either go to Canada, like go back home, which I know my nervous system really won't be able to handle, just like because it brings up a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
It didn't feel like the safest place to
Yes.
heal. Let's just
Yes.
say that.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
and then I was like, okay, well, Denmark, creating now having this safe space, like after that time that I've spent
Mhm.
there, it felt like the right place to go back to do the like more healing. So I got myself on a plane, got myself over to Denmark and had a spinal tap the next day.
Wow.
And they were like, yeah, you have Lyme disease or Borrelia. And so I did 14 days of the antibiotics, but it was too late at that point. I had it for 7 months. So it was really in my nervous system. So that whole year was actually when I was bed rest. And that's when I started my business, because this was interesting. I could not, I was in such denial that this was happening.
Mhm.
So I thought, well, I'm in bed. I'm just going to start a business
Mhm. Mhm.
because I got to be somewhat productive.
Mhm.
And I mean, at the time, I was obviously super passionate about what I was doing and wanted to get that message out anyways. But I think in hindsight, looking back now, it was really also coming from a place of I just need to have something to be
Yeah.
to wake up. What's something that's worth waking up for in the morning.
Yes.
So it was a curse and a blessing at the same time, because I think had I not had something to get me up in the morning, I could have super spiraled into depression, which is like one of the main things, and I've already been there before.
Mhm.
So was really happy I had that, but at
Mhm.
the same time I look back and I'm like, man, I just like should have just listened to my body and said I need to do nothing. That is what my body is asking me to do, is to
Mhm.
literally do nothing. And that's been like such a self-worth journey, because when your body's taken away, like you can't move, you can't contribute, you lose your friends, you like lose, you're not working, so you don't have money, you
Mhm.
don't have a partner because you don't want anyone to touch your body. You
Mhm.
literally have nothing. You have you. That's what it feels like. And
Mhm.
so it really is a journey of learning to receive,
Yeah.
because you have no ability to give
Yeah.
except to yourself at that point.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge, huge journey that way.
Mhm.
And so coming back to that question, you know, I think that she was still there.
Oh, yeah. She
That-
didn't leave. She's always
she,
gonna be there in some way.
yeah,
Yeah.
she did not leave. She was just like, I'm gonna mask myself
Yeah.
because I'm gonna mask myself doing this more spiritual based business
Mhm.
to make it think that it's like health, wellness oriented,
Mhm.
almost in a way. Um, and then I'm working from bed, and then I'm giving myself time to do all these things. But really, there was definitely an unhealthy pattern still there with her.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's still there now that I'm starting to fully feel, out of being in remission, but feeling almost better.
Mhm.
She's definitely wanting to come back full force.
Yeah.
And because that is where I felt at my highest. That's when you're
Yeah.
getting, right? You feel like super in charge, you feel super
Mhm.
in control. And um, I've just been exploring with like working out again and like how
Mm.
to build these new patterns. I say, like, I started writing this journal, I call it starting from scratch. And so
Mm.
it's like, if you're starting all of these different areas of your life from scratch, how do you want to start them now with all of this
Yeah.
experience,
Yeah. All the
how would
conditioning.
you, yeah, how do you want to build these just from square one? What's the new foundation you want to create for every area of your life?
Hmm.
And so I just am exploring that and trying to rebuild it with this new new awareness, and also with this newfound love for, all these different parts of myself, and
Yeah.
realizing that we aren't just one brain.
Hmm.
Because I think that's what hurts the most, is when you think all of your thoughts are you.
Hmm.
That's what hurts you the most.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I resonate with that so deeply of like I remember in my head, like when I had finally decided to leave my job that I had gone to school for and known I'd wanted to do since high school, like this was the right thing to do, the right path. And then all of a sudden it was my body felt like it was working against me, and the universe felt like it was
Mm,
working against me. And I remembered the thoughts that would go through my head of feeling like essentially useless. And it was like
mhm,
so sad to think that, like, wow, just not just this change in job, like it is and always has meant so much to me. But at the same time, like I'm so much more than a job. Why is this having such
mhm,
an impact on me and my identity, that then when I'm faced with being alone with myself, and I had gone through a breakup at the same time. So I was alone from, like, I didn't have a partner. I had to stay with my
mhm,
parents for a while, like again, similar to what you experienced. And so then
mhm,
being alone with yourself,
mhm,
and I don't know if I've ever really been alone with myself before in that capacity, where there wasn't something that I was like, oh, this is really hard, but I have this that makes me feel worthy. And I remember
mhm,
one of my friends said to me, she was like, you are in a process of like learning who you are right now, and like falling
mhm.
back in love with yourself, maybe for the first time, like meeting yourself for the first time. And I was like, I kind of held on to that in those moments where it was feeling really difficult and scary and hard, because it was just kind of like, how is this happening to me? Like, how did everything just all of a sudden fall apart overnight? Like, what did I do to deserve this? Or, like all those kind of like, woe is
Totally.
me.
Yeah.
And that was something that kind of held me. It was like, okay, this is my opportunity to learn who I am.
Mhm,
And I have an opportunity to change the way that I have been operating that has not been serving me.
mhm.
And going back to your relationship with astrology, I too found that, like, this connection with spirit and this connection with tarot and astrology, as like, even though sometimes I'd get readings or I'd look up something and be like, oh, I don't like that part, but it would still
Yeah,
be like, but it makes sense. But there's a path for me. Like there's something to hold
totally.
on to, and there's a purpose in it. There's a purpose in the darkness to come through to find the light. And yeah, that really
Absolutely.
helped in those moments of like deep depression and like identity crisis of like, what have I done and where am I going?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
It's a lot, and like that is, I think I've realized that is the job. That is
Yeah.
your career. Like that is the
You.
doing this work, doing
Yes.
this path is the actual job.
Yes.
And we like to think that, it's maybe this or that or whatever. Like, no.
Yes.
All of this, all of the work, all of your path really is why you are here. And so
Mhm.
every day when you have a small obstacle, a big obstacle, it's, it's all, it's really part of it. As cheesy as it sounds, like that is your
It is.
purpose. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. The
Yeah.
other stuff is just like little tests or distractions, but the work is really within yourself. And
Hmm.
yeah, it is cheesy, but it's so true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
have you been able to, I guess, stay connected with yourself as you're moving? Obviously the work that you're doing and that I'm doing is very, I would say, like soul aligned, and
Hmm.
coming from like a very holistic healing approach. But
Hmm.
how have you been able to navigate and like hold that close while using social media or promoting
Hmm.
yourself or kind of having that business, which
Yeah.
you have like probably so much knowledge and experience and is kind of like your go-to from your
Yeah.
past experience?
I have like a love-hate relationship, especially with the
Mhm.
Instagram.
Yes.
Um, Yeah, it's like I remember the first time I ever posted and I literally puked. I was living, that's when I like was living with my sister after being diagnosed with Lyme disease and was like, "Okay, I'm gonna do my first post," and didn't realize like at first you're like, "Yeah, this is great." Like,
Yeah.
or you're feeling maybe a little bit nervous, you're like, "Whatever." But then like something just hits you after. I know it did for me and it was just like, "Take it down." Like, like all those thoughts
Oh,
start coming
yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Like um, and so that was definitely like working through that the first year. I think like literally if I was to go back, I would just have done a year of self-develop like self-worth work
Mm.
first
Mhm.
before starting
Yeah.
because that it's the start stop because it's just like because you're not doing because I wasn't doing and looking at that work deeply enough.
Mhm.
It was just like more it was a constant struggle than it need like a battle than it needed to be.
Mhm. Mhm.
But again, that's the beautiful thing about having a business is you're constantly having to do the inner work because you have no choice
No.
because you are going to be faced with your biggest blocks, your biggest fears.
Yeah.
And so Instagram was definitely and still does bring up that for me and like how are people perceiving me? Is this messaging resonating? Am I coming across too much or too strong? Like, I don't know if you know much about human design,
Mhm.
but I'm a manifester. So I'm
Mhm.
constantly always like, am I too much for people? Like, am I
Mhm.
too direct? Am I too sharp? Like these kind of things. Um, so definitely always having to come back with the greater mission. I think that's what astrology always has really helped me with is it's like I'll get caught up maybe seeing someone else doing similar work to
Mhm.
me or
Mhm.
like a few women that I see are doing like almost the exact same thing and I'm like, "Oh my God, they have like 6 or 7 figure businesses. Why am I not there yet?" Like I started
Yeah.
around the same time as them. And then you start comparing and I was just like, no, you know what? They're doing it in their way. And I always have to come back, what's my way?
Yeah.
Like, who do I serve, help, and heal? Because that's what your chart's going to show you. How
Mhm.
do I communicate best? Because that's what your chart's going to show you. Like,
Mhm.
always just coming back anytime I feel like I'm doubting myself, or
Mhm.
even have, like, in large coaching programs or things like this, and I'm looking to a spiritual leader, guide,
Mhm.
authority to tell me the next step for my business. And, the biggest thing I've learned is that sometimes they don't have the answer. They have their
Yeah.
answer.
Yeah.
They have their answer. They have what got them there,
Mhm.
and what got them there is not going to work for me.
Yeah.
And that's been like one of the biggest learning curves, I think, for myself is actually having to be like, no one has my answer for me and
Mhm.
accepting that.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so now I'm at a comfortable place with that when I see people's stuff online, I'm like, that's awesome. They're doing them. There's not this
Mhm.
like, there's not a comparison
Yeah.
really as much anymore because I was just like, great, they're operating in their aligned way.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
my aligned way? And I
Yeah.
keep coming back to that, or how do I want to sharpen that? But I, I guess like my coping mechanism would be, well, not coping mechanism, but like the voice inside my head is constantly like, how can I refine?
Mhm.
Is it changing my branding? Is it, um, I like to call it procrastispending.
Hmm.
So like I heard it on a podcast once. I was like, that's so good. Like spending more on your website, spending more on having all the fancy stuff to just make it look super
Oh, I
professional.
see. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rather than actually just like doing the work to be seen more.
Mhm.
And those are always kind of been my trip ups is like, how can I get it to look more professional rather than
Mhm.
just feeling that I'm professional?
Mm. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
anytime I notice those come up now, I'm like, okay, sit down, come back to do the inner work of where does that part need to be held, the part that still
Yeah.
doesn't feel like she's a leader or an authority in her work. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so yeah, it resonates for me too, like that worthiness or that I'm not enough or what I'm producing and providing and offering isn't enough. And that comparison can be really challenging because I get stuck in like comparison, absolutely. But then there's this fine line between comparison and inspiration.
Mhm.
So I have certain people that I follow where I'm so inspired and it allows me to tap into my creative outlets to align with what I want to do. So they're doing this, but it inspires me to do something different.
Mhm.
But it's a slippery slope to, oh, they're doing something better than me. They're offering the same thing and I bet they're more qualified, like all that kind of like
Mm.
imposter syndrome stuff. The money piece too, I realize like very conditioned in me um, as like a security or safety
Mhm.
aspect.
Yeah.
And when I see people promoting their businesses as like these six-figure businesses, there's
Mhm.
like a very critical part of me that's like, on one hand being like, why I'm not doing that. Like
Mhm.
what am I missing? What am I
Mhm.
not getting that they seem to clearly understand and know how to do?
Mhm.
And then I also have this little critical voice in my head of being like, are they just saying that? Like, is that true that they make
Mhm.
that much money? Or,
Mhm.
maybe they make that much money, but the profit isn't actually, like how we don't know
Absolutely.
what's true on
We
social media.
we don't know, and we don't know the results that
No.
their clients are walking away with, because I
Yeah.
feel like I have forked out a lot. Like, I've invested a lot in my growth, and some of the people I've chose to work with I thought was going to get me to that next
Yeah.
level, and you're dropping this big amount of money on it, and they think they're worth it, their work is worth it, which is amazing.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I was left feeling like I would have never
Mm.
charged that much for
What you received.
what I received, or you know what
Absolutely.
I mean? And like, of course, there's a part that's like, it's up to me. Like, yeah, I
Mhm.
have to take the initiative to like get there. It's not their job. But at the same time, there is a level of what should be offered at those rates. And so I think there's definitely a little bit of there's a big gap there, I think.
Yeah, and it can be really challenging to navigate, like, you know, what am I doing not wrong, but differently that's maybe blocking me from being able to reach a certain amount of clients or expand my network or
Mhm.
bring in certain amount of income, but also like what are they doing that doesn't align with me? And I have to
Mhm.
make that choice of like I
Mhm.
could become very business oriented and maybe offer more coaching programs or things like that and bring in more money.
Mhm.
Not that money is everything, but it's expensive to live right now. So it's
Yeah.
it to a level, right? Um, but maybe I don't want to do what they're doing, and that's okay. And sitting with that to be like, yes, maybe A, B, and C are being offered by this person and they're doing really well and amazing, good for them. And that doesn't
Mhm.
discredit what I'm offering. And maybe it's just not my time yet, or maybe I'm going to find a different avenue, or maybe people are walking away, more seen and heard and supported
Mhm.
from having more small, intimate groups versus this big master class or something like that, right? You never know what people
Absolutely.
are looking for.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's like, what feels best for you? And like you're saying, you get to understand and look at, like, sometimes you have to know what you don't want to know what you want, or what feels good for you once you know what doesn't feel good for you. So
Yeah.
everything is an opportunity that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely a lot of learning. And like literally every day, I'm like, I'll get like a new opportunity and it'll either challenge me to be like, okay, is this an opportunity that I want to follow? Because immediately I'm
Mhm.
like, yes, I'll take it. I'll say yes to everything.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I'm like, but do I actually want to do that? Or is there an
Mhm.
insecure part of me that's like, oh, cool, this is an opportunity and I can make money? Or this is an opportunity for me to network and create more of a clientele. And it's like, but is that what it is? And when it comes to like
Mhm.
yoga and tarot and counseling and all those parts, money and those things, it's like a very tricky balance to be like, I don't like the idea of making money from it in some ways. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Like,
Mhm. Yeah, and
yeah.
like, I'm curious to know like what comes up for you around that, because I think that that is such a big block in the spiritual side of businesses, like spiritual
Mhm.
businesses, is because like I think a lot of people who are practicing and are spiritual, like, oh, I just want to help,
Yeah.
right? Like, I just want
Yeah.
to help. I don't care about the money. But at
Mhm.
the same time, like, what I feel like I've learned from my business is by not charging or, doing so much for free
Mhm.
or charging very little, you burn out very quickly and you're not able to meet your bills and you're not able to deliver your best work. And
Yeah.
so it's like, wouldn't you rather charge more and know that everything you're going to deliver is like
Yeah.
high level? And so that's been something I've really had to work on
Mhm.
myself. And I'm curious to know, like, yeah, what comes up for you there?
Yeah, like I remember a couple months ago, I got one of like my first yoga event offerings to teach a bachelorette party, and I remember telling my mom like I was like I don't know how much to say that I'm charging like my rates because I was new and I just didn't know. And she's like, well, what are you worth? You know, like
Mm-hmm.
what do people with your skill level, what's the average that people charge? And, kind of
Mm-hmm.
look at what your worth is as well as what the greater community as like a standard.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so uncomfortable. It's still so uncomfortable for me to, I guess, in a sense, like ask for like, well, how would I say this? Like to be paid for my services. It's
Mm-hmm.
very uncomfortable for me
Mm-hmm.
because on hand, I'm a very giving person, and I mean, I worked at a nonprofit. I used to volunteer forever
Yeah.
and ever. Like
Yeah.
I'm very used to not getting paid, and so
Yeah.
then like there's a level of like, oh, but this person is struggling
Mhm.
financially. I know, or I know about their life situation from counseling, and
Mhm.
it feels yucky to ask to be paid in a
Mhm.
sense because I know what they're experiencing, and humans just should deserve to be able to receive support for
Yeah.
free.
Yeah.
And then I'm also like, okay, but I paid thousands of dollars for schooling. I paid
Mhm.
thousands of dollars for my yoga training. I've spent hours
Mhm.
and hours creating a curriculum or professional development and all of these things. There is a level where I have to acknowledge my worth
Mhm.
and the value of what I'm providing.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's really uncomfortable for me
Mhm.
because it's not like as maybe straightforward as like, oh, I make candles and I sell
Mhm.
candles and it costs this much for this
Yeah.
jar and then the supplies and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. It's not as clear cut as that.
No.
And like you said, you can see certain people that are asking to for their programs, and it seems very like, I don't know, like sometimes I'm like, oh, that seems fair. And
Mhm.
other times I'm like, that seems like a lot of money. And then maybe
Mhm.
it's just I don't know what the depth of the program is, right? I don't know
Yeah.
what you're walking away from. And that's kind of a
Yeah.
gamble in a sense. But it does make me kind of uncomfortable when I think about the money aspect of
Mhm.
things. And I think for me, it's very much like knowing my worth, and also that fine line of being a new business and wanting to um, you know, broaden my network of
Mhm.
people and get out there and get my name out there.
Mhm.
And so with that comes sometimes where I'm not going to be paid as much. Being a new yoga instructor, I'm not going to be
Mhm.
paid as much as some of my teachers. Absolutely not. There's a level of experience that comes with it, but
Absolutely.
still knowing that I deserve to receive some sort of like reciprocity.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
yeah, an
yeah,
energy
exactly.
exchange, right? Like you're
Yeah.
here, you're showing up,
Hmm.
so there needs to be some sort of reciprocation there for
Yeah.
sure. And
Hmm.
like that, just hearing you say that as well brings up something that I've been so curious, like wanting to talk about too, is because, we are so often hearing now, like, charge your worth or like charge your worth.
What?
And what does that mean? Because like we are all worthy. You were born on the planet. You're worthy. Like, but your work, like as my mentors say, but your work is not. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like your work is, it needs to you there needs to be a cost on it.
Mhm.
And I think that that has been super interesting to sit with, to just be like, yeah, we're all worthy to be here. So charging what you're worth isn't necessarily going to be the most clear cut, as you'd
No.
say, to help you find your price.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what is the worth of your work that you're putting out? Like, what
Mm-hmm.
is the actual transformation
Mm-hmm.
that someone is walking away with and getting? Like, these are the external results and these are the internal results,
Mm-hmm.
for example, and making it super clear that way, I think really helps you understand what you
Mm-hmm.
can charge at. Because if you hold people through a program and every single one of them told you that you absolutely changed their lives and they all generated X amount of money after working with you, then obviously you would know how to charge that more after you've gone through it. But usually there's that curve where you have
Yeah.
to create it, you're not sure how it's going to go, so you go super low, you lowball it, realize how great it is,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're able to like feel comfortable more playing
Mm-hmm.
with prices after that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I find it really challenging and like, um, I don't know why I'm so uncomfortable by this. I've noticed recently that because I really love like the angel numbers, like the
Mm-hmm.
synchronicity of the world. I find it really confusing why so many people in the healing industry use those numbers as like, and maybe I'm missing something and like I would love to know more about this, but sometimes I wonder if it's like if I see somebody with their program and it's $444
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, is this a manifestation tool? Like what is the purpose for this? I'm a little bit lost. But
Mm-hmm.
it almost feels like ingenuine to like
Mm-hmm.
what maybe their services are worth. And I'm not saying that they're not worth that. It's just that when I see that, I bump up against something where I'm like, did they pick that number because of this manifestation and the synchronicity? And that's beautiful. Or is it because that's exactly what they um,
Think it's,
think it's worth?
yeah, yeah.
And I'm so open to learning more, but I really am like so much more about like what literally have I spent to produce this, like
Mm-hmm.
materials that I've used, time that I've used, all of those, calculating that and creating a small like, and I get this much profit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's very interesting to see how the holistic and healing realms of business have these like interesting little like I don't know what to call them, but sometimes it makes me question like is that the actual number that people decide on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
I don't
really,
know if that's being super judgmental and I'm sorry if anyone's offended by this, but it's something that I've just noticed recently and I think it also triggers a lot of my own worthiness stuff. So I'm going to clearly name that I'm like, "Oh, I can't charge that much money."
mm-hmm.
Um
Yeah,
but like why can't I? Is that
yeah,
something that I need to explore my own?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that that's really, it's interesting that you say that, because like I've also noticed that. I've also have done that,
Yeah.
and I've done that because my mentor did that. So it wasn't
Right.
even, you know what I mean? So it was like,
Yes.
wasn't even asking myself really, is, am I comfortable? Like, what really,
Mhm.
where is this coming from? Why am I putting out this number? It was just like, oh, well, she prices that way, so I'm going to price that way. Right.
Mm.
And really then realizing that actually doesn't feel aligned for me. And then I
Yeah.
just totally changed them.
Yeah. But that's
Yeah.
a really good point is like we kind of as because I found in my own healing journey, it was kind of this like secret cave that I had to like come across. Like
Hmm.
I didn't really know much about tarot and like in high school and stuff like that. When I was younger, I didn't really know too much about like holistic health and naturopathic practices and whatnot. And then I kind of like found this like little secret cave and I was like, oh no. And not, oh no, it was like, oh my God. But then
Yeah.
it's like now it's opened up and there's this community, I guess, and there's these coincidences or common themes like the pricing of stuff, or even just like masterclass or these phrases that are offered. And I like what you said about like, yeah, when I first started out, I did this because I didn't know what I didn't know in a sense, and I think we're all coming into it in a new
Hmm.
experience that way and then coming back, stepping back and being like, wait, am I doing this because I just see other people doing it?
Mhm.
Or is it for me? And I think
Yeah.
that's been a big challenge with social media is like, again, that comparison versus inspiration for me. Is this because I feel like everybody's doing it and I have to fit in, or that's how I'm going to be successful?
Mhm.
Um, or does this actually resonate with me and I want to practice manifestation or
Mhm.
practice, offering certain things that is very similar in the healing community. So, yeah, it's a bit of a tricky one.
It definitely is a tricky one, and I feel like as soon as you think you've got it and
No.
you've, like, come back, you, like, open your phone, you're like, "Oh god, here we go again." Like
Yeah. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a constantly checking in, constantly finding out what feels right and true for you, but the other thing is, like, as you continue to grow and as you continue to shift, so will your business.
Mhm.
And I think that it's just constant, that you almost come into this point that you're like, what is my business or what am I doing? Because it's changing so fast because
Yeah.
as a society we are changing so fast.
Yes.
So there's almost no time to like feel like you are fully nailed in and integrated into what you're doing
Yes.
because before you know it, you're changing everything all over again.
Yeah, I definitely, and I think it sounds like you've kind of been established a little bit longer than I have. So I definitely still feel very much in this like, okay, I'm gonna like do this, and then I'm like, oh no, we're gonna go over here, and oh, we're gonna go over here, and that didn't work, so we have to adjust this, and um, being gentle and compassionate with myself when I bump
Mhm.
up against like, oh, that I was super excited about that and it kind of fell flat, or I
Mhm.
tried this way of promoting and actually it really didn't work and was not aligned. And I left feeling kind of icky, like posting something and being like, ugh, I don't really love
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
But instead of just being so depreciating, like, oh, I'm never going to get it, I'm such a failure, like jumping into that, it's like
Mhm.
stepping back, being like, okay, I'm learning something new. This is an
Mhm.
opportunity for me to learn that something didn't work, and that's okay. And it's going to open up
Yeah.
a different opportunity for me.
Yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I love that you brought this up because that was like definitely something I wanted to
Yeah.
talk about because
Yeah.
that was such a big thing is like as soon as you and this goes hand in hand with charging what you're worth because if you're charging what you're worth, all of a sudden your business is now you, not
Yeah.
your work.
Hmm.
And when it falls flat, for example, you take it extremely personally.
Personal. So
What's wrong with me?
yeah.
Rather than, oh, maybe this is like not the right way to deliver it,
Mhm.
or maybe the copy just didn't resonate, or you know
Yes.
what I mean? Rather than just being like, okay, I need to like refine, and you're completely removed from it, just realizing that this is its own identity and you're just
Hmm.
testing, trying things out.
Hmm.
Whereas I would say for my first year, was so in the like, my business is me, and
Yeah.
if people aren't buying it, like people don't like me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was just like huge, huge entanglement that you really like when you wake up to realizing, no, it's my work and it's separate from me,
Hmm.
and detaching from outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? That is the most powerful thing. And you're just like, I'm just a scientist
Hmm.
trying things out,
Yeah.
seeing what sticks and what doesn't. It has nothing to do with me. It's just like where people are at, what people are feeling called to right now,
Hmm.
and the way that, the way you put things out will really do well, or sometimes they don't. And that's just the way it goes. And that's okay.
Yeah. I think like right now, because I started kind of summertime, like June, July, August has been like
Yeah.
my main times. And I remember prior when I was kind of building up plans for groups and renting spaces and whatnot in the building stages, I remember talking with friends and family and my network and being like, I'm going to be offering this, and people being like, oh my god, that's so needed, that's going to do so well, and like love the support, right?
Yeah.
But I think that there were so many external factors that influenced why certain groups that I thought were going to take off didn't, or
Mm-hmm.
certain offerings I was like, oh, people are going to really love this, and it didn't really resonate as much. But like things that I didn't even think of in the beginning, like August and July being the time that people travel the most and for summer and things like
Mhm.
that, and kids' schedules, and the fact that this is the first year in a while that we've been allowed to travel more freely. Inflation causing it to be really difficult for people to do more of those
Mhm.
like luxury things, like yoga for some people is very much more of a luxury.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
I guess to go to a place to do it,
yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like to be able to go to a class and pay
Yeah.
for a class,
Yeah.
or even just, I think our society doesn't value enough those practices of self-care and making
Mhm.
space, especially for moms, when it's like, how can I value that I need time for myself, right? And so I thought, oh,
Mhm.
this is going to be so good. But there's so many other factors and so much conditioning that you have to break through to even sign up to go to this space that maybe
Yeah.
you've never been to, with a facilitator you've never seen, with a group of people you've never met. Like, that's
Yeah.
so scary.
Yeah.
And so I just had that realization the other day, and I was like, oh, this is nothing. I mean, there's probably some parts that have to do with me, and that's okay. But a lot of it is so external from what I'm offering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And after like COVID, there's so many people who are like, don't know how to be social anymore. They
No.
don't know how to go to group things
Yeah.
anymore. The fact that everything is at our fingertips inside of our safe little home feels comfortable
Yeah.
to like a new extreme now, right? We
Yeah.
can get groceries to our door, we can get products from Amazon to our door. Like we
Yeah.
literally don't have to leave our house.
Yeah.
And it's become almost, I think it's created a lot of social anxiety
Hmm.
and just breaking that comfort zone to get out in groups again is actually, I think, what's so needed
Yes.
because a lot of, yeah, a lot of like mental health issues and stuff, of course, have skyrocketed since COVID.
Yeah, and that was what I kind of, when I moved from having the moon circles and self-compassion circles, which were just a drop-in based, or sign up, and it was a new group every time. I think that was something that I thought moving forward into the fall, like it might be nice to have a consistent group, like once a month, like a commitment to
Mhm.
yourself. You know what to kind of expect, who's going to
Mhm.
be there, because
Mhm.
it can be really daunting to start something new, to leave the house, to leave your routine. Um, and that was what I was kind of feeling a bit more called to for the fall. And that I've been hearing a lot from people around almost this false sense of connection. We're so connected at our
Mhm.
fingertips with social media and Facebook and all of those things, and yet there's still such a disconnect.
Mhm.
So yes, it's great for right now for us. We haven't met in person. What an amazing opportunity that we found each other
Yeah.
on Instagram and we can have this conversation. I love social media for that.
Mhm.
And if I was only interacting with people in this way, there would be such a void within me, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's something to be said about that live connection that just like
Mhm.
cannot be replaced.
Mhm.
And that is like for your offering especially, that is where the transformation happens is
Mhm.
in live group
Mhm.
circles because it bonds you in this new way when you have experiences like that. So
Mhm. And my
yeah.
hope too is that, like, within what I'm offering around conversations and tools and exercises in the group, that's my offering. But even just holding the space where there's people building connections, my hope is that they can continue those connections outside of
Yeah,
the group and build those
absolutely.
friendships, right? Because I think unless you're in school or certain settings where maybe you're meeting a lot of people
Hmm.
regularly, it's really difficult to build deep, meaningful connections.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It's interesting as you get older,
Yeah.
it becomes harder and harder. You're like, why is that? It's because you just don't have these facilities, if you want,
Mhm.
creating them for you. But at the same time, I've been able to make aligned
Yeah.
connections.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go to school or you go to university, it's really just whoever's around you
Mhm.
and then finding people that you resonate in that with in that small pool of people. Whereas when you're
Absolutely.
out in the real world, right, you
Yeah.
can, connect with people all over the world and find really like your soulmate friends, which
Yeah.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that kind of comes to mind when you're thinking of these conversations that we should touch on before we close?
I mean, I think if I could just like talking about this, if I was talking to someone who's just starting their business,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, a few things that I've definitely learned that I've kind of touched on, like the procrastinating spending.
Yeah, I like
Really
that one.
don't do it. All you need is something to sell, a way to sell it, and a way to get paid. And I learned that through my mentor. And it's just keeps it super simple and straightforward. You're like, yeah, I'm just going to have this one offer. Just focus on that one offer, do
Mm-hmm.
it well, get amazing
Mm-hmm.
results because you're going to feel super confident about it. People are going to spread it because they want to, because you got them the results they wanted. And you have like you've nailed down the way that you market it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't keep trying all the different, like, don't, it's not a food platter and you're sampling everything, because
Mm-hmm.
that is a recipe for disaster, and learn that the hard way. And so just
Yeah.
really focus on one thing, and consistency is literally key. I know everyone talks about it, but like there's this whole thing now coming through with like you have to be in the right energy and only show up when you're in that right mood. And like especially, in human design, they tell you if you're an emotional authority such as myself, like you want to be in the right energy. And I was like, no, like yes and no. If I think what has really moved the needle is just showing up when I'm not in the mood, because that's when you're really doing the work,
Mm-hmm.
is getting out of bed, showing up on camera when you feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, to me, has been building trust with myself, that I
Yeah.
can still show up and do it even though I'm not feeling like I'm riding a high.
Mm-hmm.
And because those, then it's people, you're not building that trust with yourself. And I think it's not going to move the needle to where you want to be, and that commitment with
Yeah.
yourself. Because when you're committed to yourself, people will commit to you. If you're not committed to yourself and just waiting for when you feel good, people feel that and pick up on it, and it shows.
Well, and I think like there's that fine line between like I need to be confident, and sometimes it means a little fake it till you make it, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I want to sleep in today. I'd much rather be in bed. I love all these people I'm working with, but man, I'm tired. That's
Mm-hmm.
okay, right?
Yeah.
But those times where like you're feeling a little bit more vulnerable, and to share it in a way that isn't taking the spotlight onto you, but is just acknowledging that like you're a human being too.
Mm.
That I think is so important. And it's a tricky line with counseling, because there is that kind of, you're coming for, and I'm sure you have this too, people are coming to you with a service. They are expecting you to be some level of an expert, right?
Yeah.
They're trusting that you have the knowledge and the skills, and that's completely understandable, but you also are a human being. And
Mm-hmm.
so explaining that in however is the best way to your clients, that like you can show up however you need to,
Mm-hmm.
as would I. And I think that's a really important thing, especially like that kind of like, oh, I got like so frustrated the other day when it was the Lionsgate portal, because I was just like, I don't feel like manifesting today. I don't feel like I'm tired and I just want to rest. I'm energetically drained from this astrological event.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling inspired. But then you go on social media and it's like, this is the best time to manifest and you must and do this and energy alignment and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, or I meet myself where I'm at today because something
Mm-hmm.
in me is calling for rest. And
Mm-hmm.
then the next time that I'm feeling more in my energy and inspired, that's the opportunity that I take instead of what everybody else is doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's coming back to like the business aspect and just like the healing world.
Absolutely. Honestly, like that's it's huge, because that's one of the main things I think that has blocked, like almost made me want to stop what I was doing,
For sure.
because I felt like I had to post new moon and full moon posts because
Mhm.
I had talked about astrology, and that doesn't light me up. And everyone feels so different
Yeah.
on the full and new moons. Like what's going on in your chart is really what's going on in your chart, like no one else. And so you're
Mhm.
going to feel so different than everyone else. And so
Mhm.
that's like, I hate how people can feel like they can sum it up in a paragraph for each zodiac sign. But
Mhm,
anyways, like not
mhm.
gonna get on that rant.
No,
And then
okay.
like, and then same with like, these potent times and
Mhm,
feeling like there's this urgency
mhm,
around transits and
mhm,
around certain portals of energy or times, right? It's just it didn't feel good for me. And I got caught in that as well, like of feeling like I had to do it because today was the day. And it was just like
mhm.
you get to a point where you're like, no, like who's in the driver's seat now?
Yeah,
Like all
yeah.
of a sudden it became in the driver's seat. And
Mhm,
my astrological calendar was ruling me of like when was the right times to do things, and that's just like a whole block on its own and a
mhm,
conditioning on its own. And so
mhm,
having to build a new relationship with that, right? And
mhm.
it's so good that you're able just to come back to your body. And I think that that's been the biggest pattern here, right? Is like always learning to come back to the body. What is the body telling you?
Yeah, yeah, and one more thing that it makes me think of is, like, um, I've been because of the Instagram algorithm and all of those things that we kinda have to play by in a way. No,
Mm-hmm.
we don't have to, but can support our business venture. I've been trying to think up like reels and things that align for me. But I don't want to walk around in the world always thinking like, oh, I should take a picture of this because I can post it later.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna do this and I want to videotape myself so that I can show people how to do this or that
Mm-hmm.
I'm creating this image, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like very much trying to listen in of like maybe I can just take a note that I
Mm-hmm.
would really like to do a video on. I did a video the other day on how to use a pendulum. And I
Mm-hmm.
originally thought about it when I was using it, but I'm like, no, this is my time. I'll
Mm-hmm.
make a note and I
Yeah.
can recreate it in another time so that I'm still living my life in my body, in my
Mm-hmm.
experience, and
Mm-hmm.
not living through, I guess, technology. So that's been a
Absolutely.
challenge.
That's a huge one. And I'm so happy you brought that up because it's so easy, right? To everything that you start to do becomes not for you anymore. It becomes
Mhm.
a performance.
Mhm.
And then you become disconnected from your work because
Mhm.
you're not doing it for the original reasons why you got interested in the first place.
Yeah.
And so it's like always coming back to that question of like, who am I doing this for? Like, I
Mhm.
always have to ask myself that now. It's like, are you doing this for you? Or are you doing this for the show or the
Yes.
performance to show it later on?
Yeah.
And now I just tell myself if it's not for me, then like we're not doing it
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's not filling me up. It feels like an
No.
emptiness, and it doesn't perform well either because people pick up on that.
Yeah. That's a huge part. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, for you with the pendulum, it was like you are interested in that you were doing it for yourself and now you get to show other people because it excites you
Yes.
and right, it carries a different frequency. Whereas
Mhm.
like I'm gonna do this to show people. Whereas like
Yeah.
you don't even really do it for yourself anymore. So
No.
yeah, that's been
And it was
huge.
so interesting because I had to record it twice because the one day I kind of had set aside this day to do a lot of like promotional material and like background stuff, curriculum building, and I was like, oh, I need to film how to use a pendulum.
Yeah.
And very intuitive with the movement and just like listening in. And because I was forcing it, it wasn't working. So I was like, I'm going to show how like when you think about yes, it moves one way and then no, it moves the other way. And it
Yeah.
wasn't working. And I
Of
was just
course.
getting so frustrated. And then I was
Yeah.
like, because I'm not connecting with myself. I'm trying to force
Mhm.
something to happen. And so I think when we are working in these kind of intuitive healing practices, again, there's like this tricky balance of you can't just like take a video of the products that you're selling. It
Mhm.
doesn't work as clearly as that. Or if
Mhm.
you're trying to talk about something from the heart, if you're forcing it, it doesn't come across that way. And that frequency is going to be felt by your viewers. And so there's almost an extra level of you really need it to be aligned for it to come
Mhm.
across and for people to acknowledge and appreciate and see what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mhm.
What's the intention
Yes,
behind it?
all the
Yeah.
intention.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much
Yeah.
for all this conversation around this. This has been very helpful for me. And I hope that if other people are watching, it can be, I guess that could aspect of like common humanity of like the challenges that other people are facing when it comes to building their small business, that it's like, oh, I'm not alone in this, or I've been worried
Absolutely.
about this too, but I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I hope that it definitely, yeah, helps people, and it's definitely helped me as well today just hearing this, and thank you for sharing your story and your journey and for what you do. I think so many people need that, especially now.
Oh, I yeah, and like what you said about like bringing tarot and astrology into counseling, that's like the end
Hmm.
goal for me.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out how that can come to be, and because
Hmm.
I think that as we start to blend in these more spiritual practices to our maybe mainstream medical models of things, I think
Hmm.
that's where the real big transformations are going to happen. So thank you for doing
Absolutely.
what you do too. Really
Yeah.
inspired.
Well, I'm glad that we've been able to even like meet and connect this
Yeah.
way because it sounds like we share a similar
Yeah.
mission. So that's so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah.